Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. Today's a nice warm, as you can see it's a very sunny day today. Probably not the best time of day to shoot a video, but it's the time that I had available today. So we are going to plant pepper plants today. So these are my pepper plants. We topped about half of these together maybe a couple weeks ago, and now it's finally time to get these plants in the ground and time to get them growing. So most years I actually plant my pepper plants in pots. Peppers do very well in pots, so if you're limited on space and you just have a container garden, peppers are a great choice for you to grow. This year I'm not planting them in pots, basically because last year I had some sort of pepper disease. I think because of the really heavy amount of rain that we had last year. It was pretty much the rainiest summer that I can remember. And my pepper plants did amazing for the first half of the summer, but by the second half of the summer, a lot of them really succumbed to some sort of disease. And so I don't want to plant my peppers in the same dirt and in the same pots that I grew those peppers in last year that had that disease. Just in case there's any disease spores lingering in the soil or on the edges of the pots, I don't want to take the risk of exposing my peppers to this year. So this year, for the first time in a long time, I'm going to be planting my pepper plants in the ground. And when I say the first time in a long time, I have grown like 1 or 2 pepper plants in the past in the ground years ago. In recent years, I have not grown any peppers in the ground. So this is going to basically be a new experience for me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plant them pretty much the same way that I plant them in pots. So I'm just going to show you guys how I'm planting them this year. So peppers are pretty closely related to tomatoes. They're basically cousins. But even though they're closely related, there are a few differences when it comes to planting and growing them. The first is that they're both warm weather crops, but peppers are more sensitive to cold weather than tomatoes are. And so even though my tomatoes have been in the ground for a couple weeks, I didn't really feel comfortable planting my peppers out until today. Now, peppers really don't like it to drop below 50 degrees even at night. So now the lows at night have been pretty consistently above 50 degrees, and in the projected forecast, they don't drop below 50. So I'm pretty comfortable planting my pepper plants out now. Another main difference between growing pepper plants and tomatoes is that peppers do not require the same really wide spacing that tomato plants do. So you can see here that I've laid out where my peppers are going to go in this bed. You can see that they're spaced pretty closely. This is going to be about a foot apart in all directions. And so just in this little section here, I am fitting 10 pepper plants. The old saying is that peppers like to hold hands. Basically what that means is that when the plants are mature, you want them to be close enough that their leaves are going to touch each other. So spacing your pepper plants closely like that has a few benefits. The first and really obvious benefit is that when you space your plants really closely like that, you're going to be able to get a lot more plants in a smaller space. So as long as your soil is fertile enough to really adequately provide for the needs of that many plants, you are going to be getting a bigger harvest because you've been able to squeeze more plants into a smaller space. Now my soil is pretty decent. I've worked on it over the years and built it up, but I am going to put a little handful of organic granular fertilizer in the bottom of each planting hole. This is just going to help each pepper plant really get off to a good start. Now you want to mix this in and incorporate it into the soil. You don't just want to leave it sitting there. If the plants are exposed to too much direct fertilizer, it can end up burning their roots. Even though this is a mild, slow-release organic fertilizer, we still want to go ahead and mix it in. And you don't want all the plant's nutrition to be right in the planting hole where it first is planted. Otherwise, it won't really have as much motivation to spread its roots out. And we want it to spread its roots out and really develop a good, healthy root system. So, spacing our plants closely, as we mentioned, the first benefit is that you're going to be able to get more harvest in a smaller space. So that is one really important benefit, especially if you're working with limited space. Now I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I label each pepper here so I can keep track of what's what. This is a shishito pepper, and you can see it's got that little T in parentheses there. If you topped my pepper plants with me, you'll remember that we're doing an experiment to compare the yield of topped pepper plants versus untopped. So the ones that I topped, I put a little T on the tag so that we can compare. So our first plant is in. So let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of close spacing for pepper plants. We already talked about increased yield. Another really important benefit is that when your plants are growing more closely together, they're going to shade the soil a little bit. Now the reason you want your soil shaded is because it's going to lead to less water evaporation. If you have less water evaporation, the soil is really going to be holding onto water. Just grabbing another handful of fertilizer here for this next plant. Really mix it in thoroughly. So if your soil is able to hold on to more water, it's going to be more beneficial for your pepper plant. It's not going to run through the water as fast. It's also going to mean less watering for you. If you miss a day watering and your soil is well shaded and the sun isn't able to really evaporate that water so quickly, your pepper plants will be much better off. Another reason why close spacing is beneficial is that it kind of acts as a living mulch. So it has the benefit of conserving soil moisture. It also has the benefit of reducing weed competition. When you mulch your soil, basically one of the main reasons that you're doing that is to suppress weed growth. If weeds are not able to really get a good foothold there, they're not going to be able to take off. There won't be as many weeds, and the weeds that there are will be a lot easier for you to really pick out of your garden. So they're also going to be shaded. If you have your plants that closely together, it's going to shade the weeds. They won't be able to get sunlight, and they're going to be really weak and easy to pick off. Now, if you were watching closely, you might have noticed one other difference between how I'm planting these peppers and how I planted my tomatoes. When you plant a tomato plant, you're going to want to take the bottom leaves off and plant it really deep on the stem. We don't really want to do that with our pepper plants. You can plant them a little bit deeper than they are in the pot, maybe an inch or so. Now, peppers are related to tomato plants. They do have the ability to grow roots off their stem the way tomatoes do, but they are much less efficient at it. They're a lot slower, and it's not going to happen as quickly. So you're not going to really get as much of the benefit, and then you are opening your plant up to the potential for stem rot, which we don't really want. We don't want that. It's a bad thing. So I'm going to just plant them ever so slightly deeper than they are in the pot, but I'm not going to plant them deeply like I do with my tomato plants. So I'm going to get the rest of my pepper plants planted, and I'll meet you back here when we're done to show you the final results. So here they are. You can see some of them are a little flopped over just from being transplanted right now, but once I get them watered in, they'll perk right back up. We got some more plants planted in this bed over here too. So I look forward to seeing how all these grow during the season. So thank you so much for choosing to spend time with me today. I'm really excited that we finally got the pepper plants in the ground. I'm really excited to see how they grow this season. I hope that you will come back and see how they grow as well. And I look forward to seeing you again. Bye guys. I'll see you next time.